on Trust TV. It is an amazing Saturday morning out there, and we're right here to make sure that your weekend goes off to the best of starts. I am Ibrahim Yusuf.
And I am Martia Umar. It's a very, very pleasant morning, and I'm glad to have you join us on Daybreak Extra. So there are a lot of things that we will be talking about on Daybreak Extra, exciting things. I know some people are preparing to go out and do so many work. Some people are in the partying move. I'm talking about people who have weddings today and other people who will be going out to celebrate their birthdays or have a nice time. No problem. We'll take you along as we will be having guests that will be, talking to us about themselves and make us get into that mood where we have to celebrate today. It's a Saturday. Everybody's relaxing, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It is the time for relaxation after a long week. So it's actually a way for us to actually unwind because it is the weekend.
Exactly. So we'll be having all of this pan out for you on Daybreak Extra this morning. And of course, we'll be starting with the papers this morning. It's good we look around and see what's happening and know what we will be looking at. Projections for today, basically what's going around Nigeria, across Nigeria, and maybe outside the country as well. So let's see what we will be doing and to see how we can do.
Trust TV.
Imam Abdullahi has been receiving national and international awards since 2018 when he risked his life to save the lives of his Christian neighbors for his selfless service to humanity. The recent recognition for the Imam was the National Honor Award 2022 by President Muhammadu Buhari. Da Maful Mangai, ward head of the village, and Pastor Joseph Audu, who were among those shielded by the Imam in the mosque, shared their experiences of the attack. My reason for shielding the Christian is this. God has created human beings, animals, vegetation, and other living things in the rivers, all for different purposes. So, why will you kill your fellow human being? I can't live watching this is happening to my fellow. I told the attackers that if they wanted to kill them, they should kill me first. He also speaks on what the honor conferred on him means to him. This national honor conferred on me means everything to me. My joy for the honor is limitless. I can't equate the joy to anything. Anything that can be imagined can be ended. But this can't be imagined. Only God knows how I feel. I pray for the president to live a healthy life.
Me, myself, I was running. I passed through this mosque. The Imam and his deputy and some subject. They called me and go come and enter here. My mind said that if I enter there, maybe there is a plan. I want to run. One mind tell me that just come back. I enter inside the mosque. When I enter inside the mosque, I meet our people, Christian inside the mosque and Muslim inside the mosque. Some they are crying. So Muslim and Christian, they are crying inside the mosque.
The Dua bear their minds on the recognition of the heroics of Imam Abdullahi by the president.
We are seeing for that year of the day because even myself, I did inside the mosque very that day. So I know that we lost a lot of people, about 88 people inside the passports, 2 passports, 1 for cooking, 1 for CAC.
Other residents of the community also expressed their pleasure over the national honor, saying the Imam had deserved to be celebrated and emulated. Speaking on why he protected the Christians, Imam Abdullahi said he saw no reason why innocent human beings should be killed for nothing. His son, Abdullahi Saleh, expressed joy over his father's gesture.
He happy, very, very happy. I was very excited, and up to now, I'm excited. The kind of happiness I'm feeling cannot be described.
More than 80 people who could not able to reach the mosque and the house of the Imam were killed during the attack and later given mass burial. However, with all heroic moments witnessed by the affected communities, residents say all the promises made to them after the incident by the government were yet to be fulfilled, adding that they still lack good roads, healthcare centers, among other social amenities in the area.
Where you find that they look like the same.
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
Because I have said that.
Welcome back to Daybreak Extra on Trust TV. Sincere apologies for that slight break. It was due to some technical difficulties, but we're good now. And of course, the show rolls on. Right now, we're going to take a look at the front pages of the newspapers this morning and see what is making the news. We're going to start with Daily Trust on Saturday, and the major story on the front page says, Untold Stories of Nigerians Stranded in UAE. Okay, and the riders here that say fined 10,000 naira daily for after visa expiration, and we're responding to the issues, says the federal government, whereby repatriation has been described as a last option, according to a migration expert. Details of that on page 5 and 6 of the Daily Trust on Saturday. When we talk about inside politics, you'll see how the shortfall of justices may affect the 2023 election litigations, and that is on page 25. A worrying story here that says PTA teachers survive on 10,000 naira wage in FCT, and that is on page 28. Going towards the bottom of the front page now, there's a belt, so news belt actually. Binani steps down as Tinubu's campaign coordinator in Adamawa. And a worrying story coming out from Kaduna. It says Kaduna bandits kidnapped 1,789 in 6 months, according to a report. And going back to the elections now, 2023, INEC moves against election postponement, inaugurates logistics committee. Details of that on page 4. And court orders forfeiture of Ekweremadu's 40 landed property, and that is on page 4 as well. Going towards the top of the front page, below the name mast. I bought my first new clothes at 50, says Mama Rainbow. That is on page 11. 166 killed in cult clashes in 2022. Another worrying number there. For details of that is on page 8. And well, these are the major stories on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this Saturday.
And then we'll move on to Punch newspaper, where we have a lot going on in front of the front page of Punch newspaper. But the big story this morning is talking about the new Naira. It says new rich Nigerians deposit bales of cash in banks. The riders attached to this big story. One of the riders said customers depositing billions and millions. That's coming from bankers. And then bank launched Saturday service for cash deposits and orders to share daily vault balances with the Central Bank of Nigeria. You can read further on page 4 of the Punch newspaper. The bottom strip, we have Stop advertising Davido and Chioma, psychologists urge fans. I'm wondering what the detail of that story will be, how fans are advertising Davido and Chioma. It was a very sad incident the start of the week where it was announced that the little baby of 3 years old died. Now you can read further on page 14 of that paper. And then we also have why I consider blindness a blessing. Retired permanent secretary there. That story is on page 23 of a Punch newspaper. And we also have another story that said how prison escapee raped and killed my daughter. That's coming from an artisan there. You can read further on page 18. And police hunt Yoruba Nation agitators for attacking soldiers. Police hunt Yoruba Nation's agitators for attacking soldiers. That's the reason page 5 of the Punch newspaper. And let's take a look at the top. We have a U.S. court to sentence Hush Puppy on Monday. That story is on page 4 of the Punch newspaper this morning. And then talking about flood, Bayelsa governor and ex-governor lambast minister. Okay, you got to read on page 7 to know what minister they're lambast, and it could be the Minister of Water Resources. You never can tell until you read further. And then the last story will be taken from the Punch newspaper this morning. It says a stench from Lagos abattoir pollutes air, water, and threatens residents' health. You can read that on page 21 of the Punch newspaper.
The next newspaper we're looking at is The Nation on Saturday, and it carries this major story on the front page. Ekweremadu, court orders seizure of Dubai, US, UK, Abuja mansions. And it has a rider here that says 40 properties affected. Embattled lawmaker allegedly owns 55 bank accounts. Now, details of that are on page 2 of The Nation. Still talking The Nation newspaper on the front page. Row over humanitarian minister's comments on Bayelsa flood, and state government Pandef Flay Farouk accuse federal government of abandonment. Talking about labour matters now, half salary, federal government treating lecturers as casual workers, says ASU president. And University of Jos chapter directs members to stay at home over non-payment of salaries. Details can be found on page 4. Lagos to prioritize MSMEs development, says Sanwo-Olu, and congratulates Otedola at 60. Details of that on page 30 of The Nation. At the very bottom of the front page there, Ogun flags our $400 million agro-processing zone, and that is another one coming on the front page of The Nation. At the very top, insecurity in Northwest threatens 2023 polls, census, says El-Rufai, and critical election materials already arriving Nigeria, says INEC, while terror alert making life difficult for Nigerians, says the CAN president. And finally, on the front page of The Nation on Saturday, IPOB to federal government. Forget election in Southeast with Kanu in custody. Now, details of that can be found on page 25 of The Nation newspaper. These are the major headlines on The Nation this Saturday.
And let's move on to Vanguard newspaper, where we have on the top strap here by the right-hand side, a very disturbing story about a Nigerian who starves mother to death in London. Oh, you can read that story on page 8. And Wike appoints 200,000 political aides to spend 42 billion naira on them. That's another story. And there are two riders attached to this story in the Vanguard this morning. One of the riders says, explains why he increased new appointments. And then the second rider, it's executive rascality. Oh, that's coming from the ABC. You can get the further details on page 7 of the Vanguard newspaper. And then get into the big story this morning. El-Rufai says insurgency threatens 2023 polls and census. That story is on page 7 of the Vanguard newspaper. Let's take a look at the bottom strip of the Vanguard newspaper this morning, where we have some stories about what's happening in Nigeria. Let's take a look at this. We have insurgency. Of course, we're taking that of insurgency. Let's take a look at Sanwo-Olu in Lagos. Sanwo-Olu opens Lagos Trade Fair, congratulates Otedola at 60. That story is on page 6. And then stylish philanthropist marks a birthday abroad, luxury yacht. worth billions. Okay, that's page 20 there. You can read that story. Yeah, they go concurrently. Page 6 and page 20 still talking about Otedola, who recently marked his 60th birthday. And then we'll move on to Delta State and Delta 2023, why Okowa, Ibori, Dwagang continue to flock together. You want to know the reason why? Page 11 has more details. And then Reverend, female lover appear before Juju man over marriage promise. Could there be a compromise there? Okay, you can get more details on page 15 of the Vanguard this morning. Then EFCC secures interim order to seize 40 properties linked to Ekweremadu. And one writer attached to that story says Hariwa faults EFCC, says action a plot to sabotage his bail in London. Page 4 has more details. And the last story will be taken from the Vanguard newspaper this morning. It's on Kogi. And investigates Governor Bello Natasha Udwagon fires back on pardon granted man on death row in prison. That story is on page 2, and that's pretty much a story you can find on the front page of the Vanguard this morning.
Next, we'll take a look at This Day newspaper, and it goes with the Ekweremadu story on its as its major headline. More trouble for Ekweremadu. Court orders interim forfeiture of his 40 properties globally. And of course, Huriwa saying forfeiture, trial and timing plot to sabotage ex-Deputy Senate President's bail application in the UK. That is the major story on the front page of This Day newspaper this morning. One towards the bottom of the front page there, Governor Abiodun breaks ground on $400 million agro-processing zone. Details of that can be found on page 6. Going towards the top, below the nameplate, ASU prepares for fresh war with federal government as lecturers get half pay. And riders here to say summons emergency NEC meeting, and Ngige, no work, no pay law applied in computing their October salaries. And at the very top of the front page there, UNICEF kicks over abduction of 21 children in Katsina State, says kidnap reprehensible. Children should never be target of violence. Now, these are the major stories on the front page of the This Day newspaper this Saturday.
And let's move on to The Guardian and something about ASU, which was just read in the This Day newspaper, also appeared on the front page of The Guardian this morning. It says ASU kicks and summons NEC meeting as federal government pays half salary. You can read it further on page 3 in The Guardian newspaper. And then the big story in The Guardian this morning, it's about the army recruitment. Concerns as Southeast fails to fill quota. That story is on page 2. You can read all of the concerns this morning on The Guardian newspaper. Then EFCC arraigns Shashere on fresh money laundering charges. That story is on page 3. And Afenifere crisis, Arugbofa, Okurumo, others feign ignorance of reconciliation committee. Okay, you can read further in The Guardian newspaper. And then another story in the front page of The Guardian newspaper is we won't postpone 2023 elections on account of logistics. INEC assures Nigeria. Probably there being fear of postponement, but INEC is assuring Nigeria. You can read further in The Guardian newspaper this morning. And let's take a look at the bottom strip of The Guardian. Wike and Umahi and politics of injury time appointments. Wike, Umahi, and the politics of injury time appointments. You read that story on page 26 this morning in The Guardian newspaper. And then Sanwo-Olu salutes Femi Otedola at 60. That's on the bottom strip as well. And then, despite biases, there are women succeeding and breaking boundaries. That's coming from Fejiru Chinenye Nwoko. And that's pretty much what we have in front of The Guardian this morning.
All right, we'll take a look at the Saturday Independent next, and it makes a departure from what we've seen so far with going with this as its major story. Keeping Nigeria polio free costs a fortune. And that is the major story on the front page of Saturday Independent, and it comes with riders here. It says FG to defray $150 million World Bank loan in 20 years. And Germany supports with 200 million euros. Global Coalition commits $2.6 billion and 20 million children saved from disability, says the World Health Organization. That is the major story on the front page of the Saturday Independent. Government's inability to restore peace, normalcy, despite frequent assurances is frustrating, says Onayekon, and that is on page 5. Tinubu goes tough, sacks Binani, Adamawa campaign coordinator, and that is on page 7. Moving towards the top of the front page there, UNICEF calls for release of children, other workers abducted in Katsina farm. Now to the power sector, where TCN workers petition minister accuse general manager of bribery, embezzlement. Details of that can be found on page 29. And switching back to politics once again, ignore rumors of my resignation, LP national chair tells Nigerians, and details of that on page 7. There are also other stories here which we have seen on other papers about Sanwo-Olu congratulating Femi Otedola at 60. And these are the major stories on the front page of the Saturday Independent this morning.
Okay, let's move on to the Daily Times, where on the top strap we have INEC inaugurates election logistics committee for 2023 polls, and that story you can get more details on page 4. Then NIS dismisses 8 personnel and sanctions 18 others. NIS dismisses 8 personnel, sanctions 18 others. Get more details on page 3 and the Daily Times newspaper this morning. And Kaduna security report, federal government assures Nigeria is safe. Page 2 has more details. And coming down, we have flooding. Bayelsa government falls federal government's claim on worst affected states. There's a rider attached to that story. It says federal government relying on bogus data that contradicts reality. Okay, you can start reading the story and then continue on page 2 of the Daily Times newspaper this morning. Then IDP's National Day. Federal government is committed to providing durable solutions. That's coming from the president himself. 2 writers attached to that story. It says federal government will continue to collaborate with stakeholders to promote return of IDPs to their communities. And then the second writer coming from the minister said over 1 million people displaced by floods in Nigeria. That's kind of a huge number. You start reading on the front page, continue on page 2. And then Osun Governor-elect Davido and others bag Afro Awards 2022. Osun Governor-elect Davido and others bag Afro Award 2022. In the bottom strip, we have court orders interim forfeiture of 40 Ekweremadu's property. Page 4 has more details of that story. Then House Committee summons security agencies over non-patronage of arms from Daikon. Page 3 has more details. And the last story and front page of the Daily Times this morning says, CAN, Christian Association of Nigeria, holds national prayers, says Nigeria will be restored. Page 3 has more. And that's the headlines in front of the Daily Times newspaper this morning.
Next, we'll take a look at the Saturday Telegraph, and it goes with the headline, Tinubu Obi split anti-Atiku camp. That is the major story on the front page of Saturday Telegraph, and it comes with riders here that says Rivers Governor Makinde Arakbaja. Others favor ex-Lagos Governor, and Otom Ugwanyi Ikpeazu Bode George Mimiko rooting for Obi. These are riders supporting the major headline on the front page of the Saturday Telegraph, and details can be found on page 2. Going towards the bottom of the front page there, CUPP, Obasanjo's intervention on transition needed before it's too late. Find out details of that. You pick up the Daily Telegraph and look at page 5. Public office holders making life difficult for Nigerians, says Onayekon, and insists God can still intervene in Nigeria's self-inflicted calamities. At the very bottom of the front page there, as Hush Puppy sentenced to 11 years imprisonment in US. Details of that on page 4. And Toyota recalls 14,799 Lexus vehicles worldwide. And FRSC warns against use of defective cars in Nigeria. For details of that, turn to page 26. At the very top of the front page there, INEC will no longer postpone elections at the 11th hour. And it has riders here that says insecurity may mar elections. Census in Northwest, El Rufai cries out. Jihadists scheming to scuttle polls, says Okoromu. And another headline here that says, will never succumb to pressure from Southeast governors. And I says, IPOB, talking about Nnamdi Kanu's issue. Details of that on page 2. And still looking at headlines on the Saturday Telegraph. Again, suspected herdsmen killed 18 farmers in Autumn's village. And insurgents trying to dislodge us from our land, says chair of Guma local government area. And that is on page 26. Division in Afenifere. Fashoranti's action divisionary, says Adebanjo. And that is on page 21. And going with the story that we've seen on most of the papers this morning, court OK seizure of 40 properties linked to Ekweremadu. And again, federal government arraigns sanctuary on fresh money laundering charges. Details of that can be found on page 4. Now those are the major stories on the front page of the Daily Telegraph this Saturday. And with that, we'll wrap up the reeling out of the headlines from the major newspapers in Nigeria this morning. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll take a closer look at those headlines and, of course, give a little bit of analysis as things unfold. Do stay with us on Daybreak Extra.
But in a situation where you find that a look like the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
Oh, thank you for staying with us on Daybreak Extra this lovely Saturday morning. Well, we're going to look at some of the headlines, stories that we've actually looked at this morning. And one of the screaming headlines on the front page of the Daily Trust this morning is the untold stories of Nigerians stranded in the UAE. I mean, like, it's turning out to be something else. They say they find 10,000 naira daily after visa expiration. And the federal government says they're responding to the issues.
I think it's a big problem. Sometimes we have Nigerians all over the country, all over the world, and then there's a little misunderstanding between both countries, or maybe visa problems, and we have all of these people stranded over there. I remember that there's this complaint channel that the Nigerian immigration, tends to look at the problems that UAE, especially people in the UAE, are facing.
Okay.
And most times you hear, like, you have to send a message to a particular email address. And sometimes these people keep complaining. I keep pushing my messages there. I have visa issues. My visa expired 2 months ago. I need a passport. And then it keeps just compounding, and they're not having all of the issues resolved as soon as they can. We have a lot of Nigerians in the UAE.
So it's turning out to be a major diplomatic issue now, isn't it?
Exactly. And then we have Nigerians, who are there living their life, have a great job, cannot continue living in the UAE because they need visas, they need passport to actually stay there.
And these diplomatic rows are actually getting in the way of that.
So from the pictures we've seen in most of the national dailies this morning, you can see how devastating their situation is. And that's a call for an immediate response. I know the government are doing everything they can, and they're deploying measures to actually make life easier, or maybe redeploy them back to the country.
Okay.
But is that the way forward?
Well,
When you
actually,
bring them back, what happens?
migration experts are saying repatriation should be the last option when it comes to things like this. Well, I think maybe there should be diplomatic solutions to these problems. Maybe a
Exactly.
little bit of back channeling here and there, so that we can be able to resolve these issues. Because we have people who are there legitimately, trying to legitimately transact their
True.
businesses and live their lives. And unfortunately, they're getting frustrated by these diplomatic rows. I think it's something that really needs to be looked at. Well, we'll dip into the Daily Trust and take a look at the numbers section. And it says 287 trillion naira, and that is what the federal and Lagos state governments are expected to realize from equity investment in the Lekki Deep Sea Port in Lagos. That is 287 trillion naira. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. We're looking for ways to actually get more money for Nigeria and not go into borrowings like we used to. So I think if we can capitalize on this, we can go a long way and stop all of the borrowings, or reduce the rate at which Nigeria borrow anytime we need to finance the budget.
Yeah, right. That's absolutely fantastic. And 8 billion naira, and that is what the CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, said is the value of recorded transactions on the country's e-naira in 1 year.
That's
Going
it.
digital, yeah.
That's huge. We need to go digital. You
Yeah.
know, we are running a cashless policy now.
We're trying to run a cashless policy.
I am running a cashless policy.
Yeah, well, that's you. I think a lot of people.
Okay, but a lot
yeah.
of Nigerians, you know, are still into the traditional kind of ways of saving money. And some Nigerians are even adjusting to the e-Naira, the cashless policies and all that.
I think that's why people are so alarmed when it comes to this redesigning of the Naira, because a lot of people have so much cash, you know,
Stashed
stashed.
somewhere.
Exactly. And that is why they're actually worried about it. But for people like you who go cashless, you have absolutely nothing to worry about.
Yes, but you know, I don't really blame them for going through. Have you been to the Nigerian banks recently, where you have to stay, especially during the coronavirus? You know, you go to the banks. That's when the banks reopen,
Okay.
and then you have to stay like long hours on queues. You have to stay a whole day just to get money, your money, and then the procedure of you getting the BVN. You have to link your BVN with other transactions and all that. It's kind of cumbersome. I think a lot of Nigerians are too busy to spend their whole day in a bank.
So isn't that an incentive to go cashless and actually embrace the electronic way of banking?
The electronic way of banking has its disadvantages as well. You know,
Okay.
with the network problems we have, with the bank issues that we have, trying to synchronize some of your data with your BVN, sometimes
Okay.
it could be really cumbersome. And then
But if you weigh that with the prospect of actually going to the bank and spending hours.
I think it's better if you go cashless.
All right, well, going cashless, that is the way. The e-Naira taking its pride of praise in Nigeria finance. Well, 300 million Naira, and that is the scholarship Borno State Governor Babagana Zulum awarded to 300 orphans whose parents died fighting Boko Haram. Well, I think it's a good thing. At least what they left behind is being taken care of, since they died in defense of their land.
Yes,
so to speak.
Governor Babagana Zulum is one governor who has been in front of the papers for, you know, good reasons. And from what he has done since he became governor in Borno State, I think it's something worth commending. And of course, he's been getting that commendation from a lot of people. So I think more governors need to emulate that. We need to see more things, good things happen to people across states in Nigeria.
All right, good things to happen to people across states in Nigeria. And of course, finally, in the numbers section now, 30 million Naira ransom. That is what has been demanded by terrorists who abducted 39 children in Katsina recently. I mean, like during the week, we heard this story that 39 children were actually abducted in the farmland in Katsina. And it's making the rounds. And now the terrorists are demanding for 30 million Naira. That's quite a huge sum of money.
That's a huge sum of money, and that's one thing I really say. One of the good things I would take home when it comes to the Naira redesign, because the CBN did say that some of the things they tend to achieve with the Naira redesign at this point is to catch these bandits. You know, when you're taking your money back to the bank and you're taking as much as 39 billion Naira to the bank, I think they will ask you
where you got that
that
from.
kind of money
Exactly.
from. But this was really appalling, because these children are involved regardless of the situation. Nobody deserved to go through any of this. Being abducted is one big of a problem. Not just the victims that are involved, but their family members, Nigerians, are thrown into some kind of turmoil, and it goes a long way to affect us. But we're praying that, you know, they come to their senses and release these children without asking for even a penny at the end of the day.
Well, we do hope that comes to pass. And of course, we're looking at a report here coming out from Kaduna, very worrying report here. Bandits kidnapped 1,789 persons in 6 months. And the governor is actually expressing concern over the 2023 election. Now, not just the governor, a lot of people are actually raising concerns over 2023, considering the rate of insecurity that's in most parts of the country. People are actually afraid that elections might not hold in some parts of the country.
2023 elections is an election that a lot of people are looking forward to. I've seen Nigerians, young Nigerians evolving, and they're seeing elections in a different light. But the concerns of security will always surface at every point in time. Just take a look at, you know, getting into polls, and then you see all of this election violence and things that you might think about when you talk of voter apathy. Do you actually wonder why we have voter apathy in this part of the world? Because, you know, you're not sure what will happen when you get to the polls. And if the security agents and INEC start working together and then they start assuring Nigerians that everything is going to be fine, then we're going to witness a lot of turnout of voters during the 2023 election. But if things are like this, people are still being kidnapped, people are still being asked to bring ransom to rescue their loved ones from the hands of these kidnappers. And then we see people still holding guns and still causing a lot of chaos when you talk about violence. And then we might just experience another voter apathy. Though in the last elections there was no voter apathy, but we can see that from the last election to this time, we've seen a lot of violence.
A lot has changed.
Yes, a lot of things have changed, and it seems Nigeria is getting hotter by the day.
All right, well, we do hope things calm down as we approach the election season, and of course, we get to go to the polls in a safe manner to actually exercise our franchise for those of us who want to do that. And living on stone crushing, now this is something that shows the enterprise of Nigerian men and women. It's living on stone crushing, just men and women narrate their stories. Now, this is what we truly call a hard day's job. You know, going to the rocks and pounding stone from morning till evening, and of course getting paid for it at the end of the day.
Aside getting paid for it, one thing we cannot take away is the fact that this have devastating effects on some of the residents.
Okay.
So you can imagine at some point we were being called to do a report on how this affects residents. I remember there's a rock close to Suleja, and then some people were given license to crush the rock, and it keeps having this effect. You could see some of their buildings. You know what this Abuja disease is all about? When you have, there's this name given to cracked walls.
Okay.
You know, they call it Abuja disease. And you could see how this is affecting the community. You live in a house where you have a cracked wall as a result of this stone crushing. And then the noise that comes out of it, sometimes you cannot avoid that. You know, it just happens. But aside that...
But some of these people are actually saying that this is a legitimate way for them to actually earn a living.
Yes, it could be a legitimate way, but you know, looking at it from the other point of view, it's having a devastating effect on some other people. But it's a good thing. They are earning their money in a very legitimate way, and men and women are now involved. So it's a saying of what a man can do, a woman can do better.
Yeah, well, that's a debate for another day. Maybe that's an issue of regulation now. When you talk about these seismic activities that you just talked about actually cause the cracks in the buildings, maybe that's an issue of regulation, knowing where to dig, where not to, how to crush, and using the right equipment as well.
I think we've always had the issues of regulation in Nigeria. That's where you see a lot of people get into communities and start you know, mining or crushing of rocks.
Exactly, without any proper documentation, no proper licensing and everything like that. And nobody comes to check to find out what's going on until things get out of hand.
And when you report some of these activities to the appropriate authorities, sometimes you just see that these companies who are into this activity goes back, settle, and they're back. And sometimes they never get away with it. So I will give some of these agencies responsible for that kudos. They never get away with it. The activities are stopped as soon as they realize that it's causing some kind of negative effect on people living around that area.
All right, well, we should take care of the environment, and of course, at the end of the day, the environment will take care of us. And talking about the environment now, still talking about floods, and they've disrupted a lot of activities in most parts of the country. I mean, like lots of places were actually affected. And we had the warnings, we didn't heed them. Unfortunately, this happened. It probably is going to happen again, most likely.
You know, every year the Nigerian Meteorological Agency comes up with this warning that, you know, we're going to have some states who suffer devastating flooding this year. But it seems like, you know, this year a lot of complacency set in because we felt it was going to be business as usual. And, you know, the northern part of the country had a big share of this flood. I was talking to someone yesterday who had a rice farm, and this person grows this rice, and at the end of every month, or let's say at the end of every year, gets about 1 million bags of rice from his farm. Since the flood started, I've been wanting to call this person. Somehow, I just had to pull the call through just recently. And I was shocked at what the person told me, that he couldn't even take one bag of rice from this year. So you could see how this will affect the supply of rice
Of course.
in Nigeria.
And of course, the overall price at the end of the day.
Rice will be a very scarce commodity. That's what we're bracing up for. It's already taking effect. And some people who said they went to the market recently and they bought a bag of rice for almost 45,000, 50,000 naira. So it's beginning to show. Not talking about infrastructure that had been destroyed as a result of this flooding. So, you know, states like Kogi, Jigawa, of course, Trust TV has done a lot of things concerning flooding in Nigeria. You know, the devastating state of farmers in different parts of the country who are suffering right now as a result of this flooding. So it has really claimed lives as well. You know, in the last 10 years, we haven't experienced anything like this. And then this year alone, we're counting about hundreds of people that have been killed as a result of flooding in Nigeria. I think there's been this kind of controversy from the Ministry of Water Resources. And then we have, you know, some Nigerians saying that, you know, we have statistics, we have data coming from the Ministry of Water Resources, which does not correlate with, or which does not tally with the kind of suffering Nigerians are going through right now. I think government needs to stand up to their responsibility. If we need to construct dams, let's construct dams so we stop having this flood. And then some people who attribute it to the releasing of water from Cameroon, which the minister said that was not the issue.
Yeah, it was actually confirmed that that was not the issue. It was actually rainfall. I mean, the amount of rainfall that we had is unprecedented, and that was actually what caused everything to spiral out of control as it did.
And aside that, you know, people building of waterways contributed to this. So I think we should stop using the fire brigade approach. We should do things when we should do
But
them.
the problem is something like this happened like a couple of years ago, and there was lots of lots of noise being made about it, just like we're making noise about it right now. And then we were going back and forth, talking about doing this, talking about doing that. And then at the end of the day, I think that was happened in 2012. At the end of the day, nothing much was done. And now we're facing the same thing again, and we're going about it virtually the same way.
I think when the water dries up and it goes, our worries and our pains, it dries up with it. But that shouldn't be the case.
Well, that shouldn't be the case, actually. Well, if you want to catch up on the farmers' tragedy or what happened, lots of people, what they went through, the flood disaster, you can catch our documentary tonight on Trust TV. It's going to show at 8 p.m. And of course, you get a very close look at the devastating effects of the flood disasters in various parts of the country. Now, something that actually these kind of disasters create is as internally displaced persons, IDPs. Insurgency has dealt with them, and now environmental issues are coming to them as well. And recently, IDP's National Day was actually celebrated. And this headline on Daily Times is saying that the government says it's committed to providing durable solutions when it comes to taking care of IDPs. And they said they're going to contribute with stakeholders to promote the return of IDPs to their respective places. I mean, like, are we doing enough to take care of these people?
No IDP camp can be compared to your home. We've seen IDP camps in Bayelsa, in Anambra, in Kogi, in the northern part of the country. It's nothing to write home about. You've seen our documentaries in some of these IDP camps in the Federal Capital Territory. That's where, you know, we see IDPs even getting proper care. We've seen IDPs in Borno State. Of course, they're getting, you know, kind of minimal care, but no IDP camp can be compared to one's home. So I think they should do better. You know, we have lots of thousands of people who have been displaced as a result of flooding.
Millions, actually, according to the minister, it says over 1 million people displaced by the floods.
Not to even talk about those people that were displaced as a result of insurgency.
Exactly.
So the numbers keeps compounding. It's a big problem that we need to actually deal with. Now, the government cannot do everything. We cannot put this on the government alone. I remember there's this report from the Bayelsa and Delta communities that they're reaching out to people outside the country, their children outside the country, if there's any help they can render to their community, maybe their loved ones, their family members, their relations in some of these affected states, I think they should reach out. This is when they need all of the help they can get. And we should do that. We should replicate that in other parts of the country as well. If you're in Abuja, you're safe, there's nothing happening, you're not going through any shock as a result of the flooding. I think if you have something, we can never have enough, but we can always extend a helping hand.
And
if
try
you
to
have
do
something you're not
the little we
using,
can.
Exactly, and you feel like it's going to be useful to some of these people in the IDP camp. Get out there, donate, give them cash, give them food. You know, food, if you have a house you're not using and you feel like somebody needs to be there, I think we should help each other, have each other's back at this point in time.
We actually have some people being ordered to forfeit over 440 properties right now, and that is something to look at. But the Saturday Telegraph is actually reporting that Hush Puppy has been sentenced to 11 years imprisonment in the United States. Do you think that is punishment enough?
You know, a lot of people keep wondering why we have a lot of court proceedings and we have a lot of adjournments, we have a lot of case. You know, sitting there and not being attended to. Hush Puppy was has been convicted.
Well, that's
internet fraudster and
that's what the Telegraph is saying.
Other offences. 11 years. I think it has to do with their laws there. If they feel like 11 years is enough for, you know, the crimes that he has committed.
Because a lot of people are actually speculating that he tries cutting a deal with the U.S. government, and you know, when you do cut a deal, you take a plea, and of course the sentence becomes lighter.
You know, when you cut a deal, what they want you to do is spill.
Yeah.
Let's get to the root of this matter.
Exactly.
He could have, you know, gotten into a better deal and could reduce his sentence. You know, things like this happen, and it's not a crime. You know. You just have to tell us what we need to know. We need to get to the bottom of this.
To cooperate with the authorities.
Who's the big goons? Who are you working with? So I think, yeah, maybe he cut a deal and got himself a light sentence. But 11 years, that's a long time.
Yeah, it is. It is a long time. But before we wrap up the newspaper review this morning on Daybreak Extra, there's a rising, or should I say, an issue that has generated lots and lots of publicity, and that is the unending ASUU federal government standoff. Strike was called off. Some schools actually resumed. Academic activities kicked off in some places. And then we heard that the lecturers were not actually paid what they thought they were due. And now that is generating a lot of controversy. I mean, like from the Guardian to the Telegraph and even Daily Trust actually reporting that ASUU is not happy with the federal government's stand when it comes to this. Do you think it's going about it the right way?
I think this has been cleared up by the Minister of Labour, Chris Ngige, when he said that, you know, if you continue with this strike, it's going to be a no work, no pay kind
situation.
of measure. So I think it was taken in a very lightweight.
Okay.
And now that they're back, I think they just started lectures. Most of the schools started lectures like a week ago, and they were paid half salary. So I think it's a warning that has been out there, but most of them didn't really see it coming.
All right, so they should have expected it, but they didn't think the federal government would have gone through with it.
It's very, very clear. In some of the meetings, in you know, some of the statements he has released, no work, no pay, and I felt maybe there could have been an agreement reached when the court asked them to get back to the classroom. And I thought they were going to sit on a round table and okay, there's no work, no pay policy. What are we going to do? Should we strike a deal? We've been home for like 8 months. Are you going to pay us 5? Are you going to pay us 4 months? Are we going to get a full month's salary at the end of October? But, you know, there was no discussion whatsoever about this.
Yeah, I think they were just in a hurry to obey the court's order so that they can go back to work and not dispute it. But that was the story. They were going to go back to class, but still talks were still going to be held. But unfortunately, I think that has reached another impasse.
I know a lot of Nigerians have been expressing a lot of concerns about, what's going to happen now? Is ASUU going back to strike? are they going to do what they're
Exactly,
supposed to
because
do?
it's actually, that's the danger now.
There's a kind of a certainty in the air right now, and it's really making us not sleep well at night. Because for me, I have people who are in the high institutions. I have people who
They've already been delayed, and now
delayed and all of that.
and now they're
So-
facing the threat of another delay as
So
well.
we don't need any of this.
All right.
honestly.
Well, that is the statement. We don't need that. Oh, we hope these things actually get resolved as soon as possible, so that things can go back to normal, and we don't have to survive or live with the threat of another looming industrial action over our heads. Well, that will wrap up the newspaper analysis for this morning on Daybreak Extra. We'll take a short break, and when we return, the show continues. Do stay with us.
This is the road leading up to the Lokoja Bridge from Abuja, and as you can see, tankers carrying fuel, trucks carrying livestock, perishables, and commuters trying to make their way from point A to point B have all been slowed down as a result of the flooding going on in Lokoja.
As I tell you, so my house is inside water like this.
This is my house, Big Breezy is my house.
We have no option than to come here and look for what we chop.
This water have really spoiled many things. Even as I'm talking to you, I'm not in my own house.
I want to encourage them and assure them that their government, the governor they elected, had come to see them, and government officials have been going there to see them. They are not in this alone. We are with them.
Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak Extra on Trust Television. And of course, it's time for us to get into the next segment where we have a special guest in the studio. And of course, we'll be taking a look at the gospel industry. You know, there's been a convulsion in the music industry entirely. Before now, we go on, we buy CDs, but now it has been taken to the media space. It has been taken to the digital space where online streaming has taken the mark of the day. According to research, there are about 20,000 tracks being uploaded on Spotify every day, and you have to compete with that. And then there are a lot of music artists who come around. They're being discovered on a daily basis, and that seems to be like a competition in the music industry. But let's streamline it to the gospel artists and the gospel industry as we speak. So we're being joined by a gospel artist. He's a producer, a songwriter, and he's a bunch of talent. Kingsley Innocent is here with us this morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
So the gospel industry, you know, it has evolved over time. Now we have the likes of so many. If I start mentioning names, and we might just go on mentioning names and not get to the topic of discussion this morning. Now, the music industry, how would you rate it, you know, maybe a few years back, maybe like 10, 20 years back, and then what we have now? What has changed, basically?
Yeah, I think few years back, like 10, 15 years ago, you could record songs, send it via infrared, Bluetooth, or you record, or you get a CD, you send it to marketers, maybe probably in Lagos, and then they market the songs, and then the songs probably be everywhere. But now, and then there were not so many artists, you know, gospel artists, to put it in that way. But today, it's a different ball game. Today you don't sell CDs, you have more people singing than those not singing. Basically, if once someone you could sing a little bit or do something, you become an artist. You know, so there's so much competition right now. But then it's a bit easier to get your songs out there now. But then it seems as if it's a little bit harder again. So it was easier 10, 15 years ago to get your songs out, and then you can go to radio stations, do radio tours, you know, get CDs, give it to local people, merchandisers who will sell your CDs in the marketplaces, or you give it to bus drivers to play your songs and all of that. But right now, it's the margin is different. The way songs are being dished out right now is different from how.
But these are man-made issues. All of the people you just mentioned are still in existence. You talk about the radio station. We still have radio stations. The bus drivers are everywhere across Nigeria, across the world. And then we still have some of the means you said you could promote. The church, you know, it's another avenue where you have your CDs given to church members, and you know the choir have to sing your song so it gets popular. So what has changed? Because this seems to be a man-made problem. Is it the mentality of people, or you know, things have really changed in a country that you cannot capitalize on those ways of making your music popular?
I think things have really changed, because in the world today, like in the Western world, America, UK, everywhere, and we Nigerians, we compete with them basically in terms of streaming of songs, in terms of producing the right music, using the right sounds, writing the right songs, and then putting them in places where people can easily find you. You know, so it's not as if those avenues, other avenues, are not still there. They are still there, but then in order to meet up with the competition, so you have to meet up with other avenues that other nations use, other countries use in order to meet up. Like for example, the Afro gospel, the Afro beat right now is ruling the world. And I think recently, a friend Limo Blaze did a remix of Jairi, and then did an Afro fusion to it featuring Lecrae, and it went viral. You know why? Probably because there's a little bit of Afro fusion to it. Now the likes of other of the beats they make from Africa now is making waves. How? Because we are also trying to meet up with the beat, with the quality of production, with also the avenues at which these songs are being sent out there. So people get to have more access to our music, unlike before, where people don't have access to our music because we didn't have online stores that could help distribute our songs. So now we have more online stores that could help distribute the songs, and then more people abroad get to hear your songs, like in Australia, Finland, countries that you don't even think exist. You know, and then there's this thing they do in online stores where when you send your songs to them, they could ask you, do you want us to send them to more stores? And then you tell them yes. So there could be a place in Vienna, somewhere in Germany, somewhere in Russia, and then you get a notification that, oh, you have 10 people, you have 20 people listening to your songs in those environments. So you have more reach, you reach more. So your song, your sound reaches more people, more like a multicultural community, other than the community that your core community, which is like in Nigeria.
All right, well now let's talk about gospel music itself and the evolution of gospel music in Nigeria. We're talking about how music generally has changed, and now you go to streaming, you don't talk about CDs and all that. When we hear gospel music, or when we hear about gospel music, at a point in time, the first thing that comes to our mind, most especially for us in this part of the country, is the normal Zumuntamata kind of vibe. That is what comes to mind. You understand? But now we have hip hop gospel, we have R&B. You just talked about the Afrobeat now. I mean, even reggae. You understand? So, how has that evolution helped to push gospel music?
You know, I feel it's all about creativity, and I believe God gave us a sound mind in order to be able to be creative. Okay. So being creative in the sense that we carry a Zumuntamata song, and then we add a CCM beat to it. A CCM means a Christian contemporary music, kind of be like the Hillsong, Planet Shakers, Jesus Culture. So you put the beat, then you sing a Hausa song. So what have you done? You have given the song a body for everyone to be able to listen to. Okay. You've been able you're able to be creative, you know, so that you can have more audience. So the goal there is to reach out to more. Understand? The goal there is to reach out to more. So when we get like for example, you can do Zumuntamata. We've done stuff like that. We've tried stuff like that. I have friends who have tried stuff like that. You know, carry a known hymn song or a Hausa hymn song. You understand? And then put an Afrobeat to it, or a Hausa hymn song, put the CCM beats to it. Or you can do a slow worship song. It's a danceable song, but that fusion. So I feel God has blessed us with the ability to be creative enough to create music out of something that when people hear it, they'll be like, are you singing this particular song? Like for example, there's a song, we did a remix.
Okay.
So when we're singing the song, when you start singing the song, people don't know you're actually singing that song until you get to the chorus of the song. Because how do we do it? You're able to add up some things to the music, then to arrive to the chorus, and then people will be like, oh, this is the song we're singing.
Okay.
So, we pick the songs and we're able to be creative, be able to be creative and add up some things just to, and then God is perfect.
Right. So basically, you're saying this has helped in the expansion and the acceptability of gospel songs to different categories of people.
It has.
Okay.
It has, because unlike before now, maybe I could say 10 years ago, we listened more of Tasha Cobbs, all of those people. But when we decided to revolutionize our music, when God helped us to be more creative, they started coming into Nigeria to do stuff with us, because we decided to own our sound. We decided to own our God-given sound and music. So they decided to come and work with us. Why? Because we decided to grow to their level, and then they realized that they had gotten so used to their sound that they needed something new, and we brought out something new. So they had to come in and do stuff with us. There's this gospel artist that did the remix of Excess Love with Mercy Chinwo.
Okay.
Like examples like that. So we have Todulani, who was in Nigeria last year, doing stuff with our people. That's in the gospel scene. So we have lots of them coming in, and it's amazing. Like recently, for the past 2-3 years, you have more of the American acts, gospel acts, coming into Nigeria to do stuff with our people.
So is it easy producing or making gospel artists than the secular one? I'm asking this question because, there's this controversy at some point, when you cross carpets.
Yeah.
We've seen people who have cross carpeted. Chidinma Ikile, used to be in the secular music world.
Yeah.
And then now a gospel artist. We have a lot of them. We have people who do gospel artists and do secular at the same time.
Yeah.
People like Banky W. Okay, maybe he has cross carpeted.
I think he's a pastor now.
Into a gospel artist. But is it easy? That would determine my next question. Is it easy in the secular music industry than the gospel music industry?
It's both easy. It's easy for the secular because you don't have to be careful about what you write. In the gospel scene, you have to be led by the Spirit of God. The Bible says, "For they that are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God." So, in order to write good songs that will uplift people's souls, good songs that will heal people's hearts, you have to receive those songs. In receiving those songs, so you can sit down to write the songs. So in writing the songs, you meditate on the lyrics of the songs to bless you first. After it blesses you, go to the studio to record the song. But for a secular act, you play the beats and then
okay,
and
so I hear a lot of gospel artists said, I was just in the kitchen and then I got this message from God and I just had to put it down.
Yeah.
Now, coming to earnings now, the gospel artists would say, we're not having the kind of gigs we get when we're in the secular world. And some people who were in the secular world before will tell you that, I was earning way more than I'm earning now as a gospel artist. What's the discrepancy there? And why do we have that kind of dichotomy, if I may put it that way?
I think it's our ability to be able to market ourselves. Because
is it because you have specialized audience?
Every artist have a specialized audience. You have, like for example, when you're building a fan base, if you have 1,000 dedicated fan base, it means you've built the community for yourself. So amongst those 1,000, they will share, have you heard this song? Have you heard that song? And then your fan base increases. You understand? So in doing that, you notice that in the gospel scene, it's easier. I feel both the gospel and secular is easier to actually promote yourself. It's just knowing how to do it. And I feel we in the gospel scene, we don't hire professionals to help us. Like there are people who are good at these things, like the secular world. They produce a song. One person, the secular world, a producer produces a song. He doesn't mix it. gives it to somebody else to mix it. The person mixes it, sends it to someone else to master it. And then they get a professional to come sit down, a PR person to say, okay, so let's do this. Let's plan a tour, or let's plan how to promote this song. So let's put it on digital platforms. So this is how much we can use to promote this song. This is how much you give this person. This is how much you give this station. This is how much you put in here. This is how much you put on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. And the song is everywhere. And then when you listen to the song at first, you're like, nah, I don't like the song. Second time, I don't like the third time. Before you know, you start humming the song. Why? Because they put it in your faces. But we, the gospel ones, we do a song. You want to be the writer, the singer. You want to do the BGV by yourself.
Marketing
then you
as
see
well.
the grace of God. Then you now see the grace of God in the song out, without actually putting in money.
Okay.
Because you need to put money to promote the songs. Because in order for the songs to go out there, those platforms that were created to put the songs, they were not created to be used for free. They were created so that you can put money and then they can send the songs out there. And then sometimes, yeah, you could put it for free and then they put it, but they won't push it. You understand? But the secular world have learned how to utilize the social media. They've learned how to utilize the TV, the radio, and they've learned how to put themselves in your faces.
All right, now when it comes to secular music, I've actually heard reports. We've seen how much these guys are actually paid to go play shows, do gigs here and there, concerts and whatnot. How often do gospel artists get these kind of gigs? And how lucrative is it if you do get it? You understand? Because they might just say, all right, come and play for us here. It's all for the Holy Spirit, so no wahala, we'll give you transport and money for pure water. Your reward is in heaven, you understand? So how difficult is that?
It's a two-way thing. It's difficult actually, because the orientation is bad, like especially in Africa and Nigeria. Because the idea is built that, oh, you're a Christian, you are freely given, you receive freely, so freely should you give.
Exactly.
You know, but I feel it is wrong.
Okay.
It's very wrong because the Bible said that the gift of a man shall bring him before, not before mere men, but before kings and princes. Now, if you come before kings and princes, you don't go out empty-handed. So if people invite you for an event, and I think it's a two-way thing, value. The gospel artist in itself does not value what God has put in his hands, and I also feel that the people inviting you do not value you.
Okay.
The reason I said so is, for example, for example, Sinach or Frank Edwards is being invited. The honor and the value they give to him will be different from someone who is not up to his level.
Okay.
You understand why? Because they believe that he has built himself, or he has achieved so much so that they can't devalue him. So they have to value what he has. So I feel also for the artists, value yourself, work on yourself. Be able to work on your music, work on yourself, work on your attitude, and how do people approach you?
Okay.
You understand? Now I'm not saying be all business or blah. No. What I'm trying to say is, if you're able to value yourself, then it will be easy for people to receive. To receive in the sense that if people don't value you, the expectation will not be as high. For example, you may be more anointed than another person, but the person is being valued more than you, and you could do more than the person. But the people receive more from the person than you. Why? Because the expectation they have is more from the person than from you. So I feel it's value.
Okay.
Able to work on ourselves, work on producing the right sounds. You must not say, oh, pay me this or pay me that. But how you present yourself is very important.
Basically packaging.
Yes, packaging.
The gospel artists of now, they've really evolved. And, sometimes you wonder, could it be places that some of these gospel artists worship? Because we've seen gospel artists, they're ministers, they minister through songs. And we've seen the likes of, Christ Embassy, people worship at Christ Embassy, Koinonia, Koza, and, a lot of places, that and many other places that people worship. People have attributed it to, you know, you need to belong to this set of people, or you need to worship in this church for you to be big, in quote. Is that true?
It's not, because there are people who have been worshiping with those places for years and there's nothing to write home about.
Okay.
Yes. I feel also one thing I really don't like is favoritism. Oh, okay, if you're here, then it means you'll be favored without actually attributing it to God. Well, now, remember I said how you value yourself, packaging yourself, how you present yourself, how you walk on yourself. Then the Holy Spirit, the gift of the Holy Spirit able to help you to be able to know where to be is very important. Because they could tell you, okay, be here, and you're not supposed to be there. So discerning to know where you're supposed to be is also very important. Because if you start going there, if you start saying, okay, if you're in this church, you will blow, or if you're going to this place, you blow, or then it means you've taken the ability of God's help, so you've given it to man. It's important to be in the right atmosphere. It's important to be in the right places. But is that your place? It's also a question I ask. Is that where you're supposed to be? Because you could be there, you could be singing, doing all of those, but you'll be struggling. Yeah, a lot of people have succeeded in probably being in such platforms. But as a gospel person, as someone who loves God, someone who serves God, is that where God wants you to be? So for me, I feel it is in knowing where God wants you to be that is more important than actually going to where you are told to go because, oh, there's help there. Like for example, okay, I'm sitting here. I've worked with Sinach. I've produced a couple of albums with her. I've sang with her. I've traveled the world with her. I've done all of these things. But I'm sitting in Abuja. Somebody will be like, why did you leave? You're supposed to be there. You're supposed to do all of these things. But it's important to also discern to know where you're supposed to be at what time.
Taking it one step at a time.
Yes. It's very important to be discerning, because if as a minister or as a gospel artist, I would use it as a minister, not as an artist, but you're selling, not selling, but you're showing, or you're expressing God to people. And if you're expressing God to people, it's very important that you follow the God that you express to people. Because if you don't follow, if you're not led, then it means you're not the sons of God. So which of the gods are you showing to people?
Exactly. All right. Well, very good insights there on the gospel music industry. Kingsley Innocent, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been eye-opening concerning gospel music, and I hope we'll have you again sometimes subsequently. All right. All right. Well, we'll be remiss if we don't ask you to just a little bit.
Let's test the vocals.
You know.
Okay.
Just a little bit.
Okay. I'll just do this Hausa song. It says, Yauzan Reira Makawakya Boya Yesu. Don't kai sayabo, Yauzan Reira Makawakya Bo Bangiji. Don't kai sayabo, 'cause you're my joy and my peace. I bring to you sounds of worship. Because of you, I'm alive, I give you praise. You're my God and my King. I love you, Lord, with all I am. Because of you, I can lift my voice and say, Yozan, Reira Makawakya Boya Yesu. Don't kai sayabo, Yozan, Reira Makawakya Bo Bangiji. Don't kai sayabo. The last part says, Hallelujah, 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 Hallelujah. Hallelujah, oh, don't kai sayabo.
Wow.
All right, that is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. It's been fun having you right here in the studio, and it's amazing to actually listen to your work. It's absolutely amazing. Thank you very much for coming on the show. All right, it's still Daybreak Extra on Trust TV. We'll go on a short break right now, and when we return, the show continues. Do stay with us.
Yauzan Raira Makawaka Yabo Ya Yesu Donkai Sayabo Yauzan Raira Makawaka Yabo Bangiji Donkai Sayabo. You're my joy and my peace. I bring to you sound of worship. Because of you, I'm alive, I give you praise. Hey. You're my God and my King. I love you, Lord, with all I am. Because of you, I can lift my voice and say, you're my joy and my peace. I bring to you sound of worship. Because of you, I'm alive, I give you praise. You're my God, and my King. I love you, Lord, with all I am. Because of you, I can lift my voice and say, my God and my King. Because of you, I can lift my voice and say, I can lift my voice and say, you're my joy. Sound of worship because of you. Hey. Hey. You're my God and my King. My voice and say,
And welcome back, and thanks for staying with us on Daybreak Extra on Trust TV. Well, now we're going to look at something totally different from what we've just explored right now, and we're looking at digital photography, now, which is something that has undergone lots of individual photography generally, and has undergone a lot of changes over the years now, computer-mediated approach to photography, which is digital photography now. Now, the old methods of taking pictures have been improved, so to speak. Let's not say they have been thrown out the window, but they have been improved and enhanced by digital technologies that have emerged over the years. Now, it has not only replaced the former usual way we used to take pictures, with the silicon chips and old photography methods, but it has also introduced more advanced methods as photography has now adopted the use of information technology, basically. Now, so to talk to us about the integrity and ethical perspective of visual photography, we have right here in the studio with us Osaze Efe, and he's a photographer, an enterprise developer, and of course, a social change agent, all wrapped up into one.
In one.
So good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
All right, now let's talk about photography first, all right? The evolution of photography. I remember back when you take a picture, first of all, you have to buy the film. You put it in your camera, you take the picture, the film has to finish. You go to a dark place, you rewind it, you put everything, then you take it to get developed. It takes like a week or so for it to actually get done, and then before you go back and you get your prints. But now, that is all different. How has that actually changed the face of photography in
Thank
general?
you for having me. And you gave an interesting background, like that's what you do. Of course, you're a researcher and a professional, but that was quite a good one. The evolution of photography has been both a blessing and a curse.
Okay.
It has made the interrogation of imagery, the idea of imagery, more easily assessed now.
Okay.
That's somewhat of the blessing side, but on the other side of being the curse, it's now make it so easy for everybody to say they are photographers.
Okay.
You know, the fact that somebody plays street football doesn't make him a footballer. The fact that I can sing at the bathroom does not make me a professional musician like the guy that just left. So the fact that a guy has a DSLR or even a very high-end phone with well-built camera and can actually take a few pictures here and there does not make the person a photographer. So that's been the downside of how photography has evolved from the times where we use film, to how darkroom and all of those processing, the entire processing chain to how it is now. But in any ways, the world generally has evolved. And the evolution that has happened in the world has made digital photography to be very effective in communication. And this has further been escalated by the invention of social media. News break, and that's even impacting on how journalism is being practiced. Something happens, and before established institutions like you guys, stuffs are already online. Then it takes people like you guys who are professional to come and give proper context to the conversation. And of course, we can flip that further and to talk about fake news, misinformation, disinformation, and all of that. So it's a bit all wrapped up, in one. But it's a bag of mixed apples. It's been the great times and there've been down times.
All right. Well, that is quite interesting. So you touched on a very, very important aspect of it. I mean, like using photography to pass messages, to communicate. I think maybe that's what makes the difference between an ordinary person that picks up his camera and says, "I want to take pictures," and actually a professional photographer who sees a story when he looks at an image, and that is quite different. So. Well, that evolution that we talked about has definitely made things easier. But really, is now photography being used as an instrument of change, negatively or positively?
it's also both. You know, the idea of communication is to make people change their mind, either for good or otherwise. That's the whole essence of communication. And because we live in a very, very visual world, photography has become a very strategic tool in that communication. Photography in itself, a photograph in itself, it's not an end.
Okay.
It's actually a traffic. It's actually a traffic rail, as it were, where you see a picture. You don't see the picture for what it is. You see a picture for what it is saying. So you see a picture of a child happily swimming in the stream in the village, and you have this nostalgia, and it takes you back to when life was life.
Exactly.
So you're not looking at the picture in itself, but you are engaging with an emotion. You're engaging with your memory. You're engaging with memories. You're engaging with an ideal that would make you crave for the possibility of life like this again. So it actually moves. It gives us a feeling of time travel. Then you see a picture of a woman being bastardized, you know, domestic violence, and it triggers an emotion, and that emotion that it triggers can further be scaled to make you an advocate, to set up an advocacy structure to see how we can stop gender-based violence, because men are also being violated.
Exactly.
So, that's what a photograph does. It tells us to action. It tells us to smile. It tells us to, you know, have sad emotion. It's actually a tool that can easily call people to action, either for social good or for social ill. But as a professional, and of course, we're looking at we're having this conversation in the context of ethics and integrity. It is about social change. You see, you're telling a narrative of raising money to feed some. There's a photograph of a senior colleague that he shared with me about the nutrition challenges that go in Katsina, the women and children in Katsina are facing. I saw the pictures and I was moved. Then he did another project on the water issues in Nasarawa, and that really got me thinking. Okay, just recently, the flood everywhere. One of my junior colleagues went to Lokoja to document the impact of the flood, and it stirred up a lot of emotions in me. Like, why are these people? I saw people that were abandoned by the state. I saw people that didn't have any reason to be suffering like this. So, and that got us a bit talking. So, that's what photograph does. It's such a powerful tool. I can as well describe a thing, but when I show you a photograph of it, it becomes a different experience. Like I said, we are very visual, and photography now just fit into that human tendency and experience, and move us to take action.
Now, here you talk about, you know, how some of these pictures have moved emotion. Journalism is one aspect that you cannot separate from photo. That's why we have photojournalism. And then the involvement of photography has really opened our eyes to a lot of things. Now, how has this impacted in reporting and journalism in general?
Thank you. Like you rightly said, there is a genre in photography practice, but there are different aspects of photography: weddings, documentaries, photojournalism, street photography, and all of that. So photojournalism is actually interesting, one of the most lucrative aspects of photography. Yes, but a lot of times people look at weddings and portraits. But
exactly.
Yeah, we would, you know, if time permits, we'll unpack the business aspect of it. There is a high responsibility, a high moral burden on photojournalists and documentary photographers in the midst of all photographers, different genres of photography, because it's critical to the development of the society. I heard of a story during IBB days, how two photographers represented two media houses took different pictures of the same protest. One of the photographers that was from the side of the government reporting, or reportage, depending on how you guys describe it, said took a picture of students running towards the police. They were aggressively running towards the police. So he took the picture from there. And there was another photographer that was on the side of the protest, took a picture of police officers with their guns and all of that. The same event. The following day, the two newspapers reported students aggressively attacking police. The other newspaper reported police shooting on armed students. The same story, different narrative. So in that case, we start looking at the morality of misinformation, the morality of truth. What is actually truth? In what actually guides you as a photojournalist? The thing is this about photojournalism: the agenda. Photograph may not lie, but the photographer may lie.
Okay.
You know, because the photographer that is telling the story from the side of the government distorted the complete truth, and half truth can be said to be a lie because it misinformed and inspired actions in a particular way.
So can we say that the photograph lied at that moment?
Not the photograph, but the photographer.
Okay, so
because actually the students were running towards the police, but what happened after that? So a photograph is more about where the photographer is standing. But I can take a photograph of this studio right now, and two of you will not be in the frame. He will be in the frame, and we can say that you guys didn't come to work, and send the picture to the chairman and said, "Look, with this picture evidence, I'm not sure Oga and Madam came to work today." We can take a picture of this aspect, and he will not be there. We can make a case. So it is not necessarily the photograph. It's where the photographer is standing. So for photojournalism, the moral burden is more because you owe the society the truth and nothing but the truth. But again, we live in a world that is driven by agenda. So the agenda of whether the media house or the photojournalist will shape the subjectivity or objectivity of the image.
Okay. Well, in our desire to actually document the truth or report the truth as honestly as we can, is there a line that we are not supposed to cross as photographers, or as a photographer? Is there a line that you're not supposed to cross?
Yes. You, as a photographer, you try as much as you can. This is in the concept of documentary and photojournalism now. Because other aspects of photography are very subjective. I can take a picture in the studio and I tell them to remove my tribal mark. That's what I want. They could use Photoshop to remove that. That is how I want to be seen. But as a photojournalist, you take a picture of me and you distort me in a particular way. You strip me of that. This tribal mark, to a large extent, tells where I am from. So when you remove that, you're actually removing a part of my identity, which it doesn't represent me. So the line that should not be crossed is the line of truth and the line of ethics. Ethics in the sense that you respect me in the way I ethics is more about representing me the way I want to be represented. And I will give an example. People go to IDP camps, for example. People go to where there are like this flooding, like when there is war and all of that, and take picture of children crying with flies all over them without those children's permission. And they take these images and they use it to fundraise. And the photographers we did the project sometime in May. My organization did the project sometime in May at the IDP camp in Durumi. Went to teach teenage girls how to use pictures to tell their own story and capture their aspirations and how they imagine life to be, having suffered the insurgency in the Northeast. And one of the camp leaders, a lady, was telling us that some time ago, somebody reached out to her and told her that they saw her pictures on the streets of London. A lot of people came in there to take pictures and they left. So she cannot really tell who among the several photographers who will be coming to document the place did that. Of course, for a picture to appear on the streets of London, a lot of things must have exchanged hands.
Exactly.
But the question that sparked in my mind was this woman, did she grant the consent for you to have captured her first? Then in granting the consent, did you capture her the way she actually wanted
to be captured?
Capture. You have to respect that. So these are the lines. So as a photojournalist, you come to grant me an interview, a verbal interview, and the next thing I'm seeing on the news, and I know a lot of these bloggers that are hungry for click, they do that a lot. So somebody will say something, and they will flip it all around just to gain clicks. In the same way in picture, I should be represented the way I need to be represented, the way I want to be represented. So that line should not be crossed. And like I said earlier, the truth about my state should not be distorted to instigate a particular narrative that I did not sanction.
All right, okay.
I wish we could continue having this conversation, but unfortunately we do not have time. But thank you so much, Osaze, for being a guest on Daybreak Extra.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and this is how we're going to wrap it up on Daybreak Extra today on Trust TV. We've had fun being here in the studio. Martia?
Yes, we did have a lot of fun, especially from all I've gotten from photography. You know, then it used to be wash my photo. You know, we use this word a lot, wash my photo, and then you get it. But it has evolved, and it's a very interesting thing.
Exactly. All right, this is going to help you wrap it up on Daybreak Extra for today. Hope you had a wonderful time watching, as we had a wonderful time bringing it to you. Let's do it all again next week. I am Ibrahim Yusuf.
And I am Martia Umar.
All right, we'll sign out. And we'll leave you with my daily hustle.
My name is Usman Umar. Actually, I'm so very happy to see you people around. And this shop you are seeing, before I start this thing, I first of all know where I'm coming from. That encouraged me then to set up this business. And as I start the thing, from the beginning, initially the thing is not easy. It's not easy, but with the prayer and the help of God, as I start the thing small, then with the prayer and God help me, the thing begin to grow up small to the level that the thing is today. And the way the thing is today, I'm so very grateful. Actually, I'm not the first, but I'm second to the last.
In the family?
Yeah, second to the last. And actually, we are about, we are 7. Yeah, we are 7. So, you know, we are coming from a family. When we say there is maybe your father is not that financial buoyant. So you as a young guy, once you see something like that, you have to build up so that at least you make your family proud of you. Actually, after my primary education, then I moved to secondary. So then, after I finished the secondary school, I've been looking for the admissions, and that time admission wasn't come through. And I said instead of me to just stay like that and be waiting for the admission, let me begin look for something doing. I'm from Abijukulo, Mala local government area of Kogi State. Yeah. That is when I moved from. Come back here. See, people I come meet, they are not even that financial. buoyant. So I now stay here. Maybe we are coming from all this, can I say, poor background. You know, say when you carry yourself from all the way from your village, come to city like this, you know, you have to. Anything you're doing, you have to look back. When you look back, think about your family at home. Then you see, say you serious with what we are doing. That is, and actually, from then now, present to now, what that was then, I was not be able to get the admission to further my education, but with the help of this business now, actually my admission is on process now, and by your grace, soon I'll be in school. Actually, being into this business for the past 5 years now, but then I was not the owner of the shop. I was just been helping my person that time to just earn a living. Then just start from there, small, be helping them. They pay me. After they pay me, then I'll be saving small out of waiting them pay me. Then from there, I now go out and been asked of all these jobs, the cost of the shops. So they now tell me the cost of the shop. Then from then I now belt up again. Then after I make money, reach the amount of the starting to just collecting the trouble. Then after I getting that money, then I now cut off from my boss. Then I now come and start up with my own. Actually, you know, this type of business, you can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. You need people who will help you. And actually, right now, about 3 of them, they are with me. Some of them, they do it on contract, and some, I pay them monthly salary. Actually, some I'm paying salary. Then some of them, I've been paying them, and at times they normally used to sleep to sleep there. So with that opportunity, they just by them working here, they now get opportunity to at least pass a night here. Then when there is work, plenty work, or when there was a challenge, all this NEPA challenge, then they'll pass night, then they'll go. And some of them, one of them, he normally used to come. After he come, if there is plenty work, I call him, then he'll come, he'll do the work, then we'll count it, then I'll pay him, he'll go. Actually, that was the most challenge that we normally used to face now. You know, this type of business cannot do without light. Once there is no light, we'll suffer it a lot. And at times, when all this fuel matter day, if you won't carry your money, go police station, suffer there, maybe at the end you will not even have anything. But at times, if there is a situation like that, maybe at times, light normally is today in the afternoon at times. Any day we know that there is no light in the afternoon, then we normally do night, because definitely maybe they will normally used to bring light in the night. Then definitely we'll do night towards the break, and by then, before they take the light in the morning, by then we have been go far with our work. You know, all those kind talk, you know, it's a lazy talk. Because as long as and as far as the thing is bringing, I'll get small something out of it. No matter how the stressful, how the dirty the work is. I normally used to bear the cost, any cost of it like that. And these days itself, it's not the matter of how dirty the job is, it's the income you are getting out of. In the income you are getting out of the job you are doing, and the freedom you have inside the work you are doing in life. Like now, as we are here now, this morning, we just wake up, come shop, we clean up. After clean up, then we'll do everything. Then some of my brothers and those working with me, they begin the wash clothes, and me, myself, I begin the iron. And once in case if there is customer coming to come and collect any clothes, then me I will go outside then call another person, come to start the ironing. Then after that, after the ironing, we make sure say as light day that time, we just make use of the light before they'll interrupt the light. And that was happened. And as you can see now, there was no light now. But this morning we just try rush up and do some things. Then now we are waiting for the light now. And once the light don't come, then I wanna, and those clothes that are outside there and they dry, then I want to buy the fuel and begin and start the generator and begin to do work.